everybody. Welcome back to the Standing Light podcast. I am your host, Leyla, and I am so excited to have the incredible Rasmus Gaupp-Berghausen today on the Standing Light podcast. Welcome, Rasmus. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you very
much. I cannot wait for our conversation, but just to give a very brief bio, Rasmus was in charge of Dr. Emoto's lab for many, many years, and he is now developing technology that translates the heart frequency into sound and light. So I'm sure you can only imagine how excited I am to share this conversation with you all. And without further ado, I would love to just have you share a little bit about your journey and what you're doing now. But ultimately, you know, the world got to discover Dr. Emoto's work in such an amazing way, and it lives on, but really, you know, you were the scientist behind it all. Yeah, it's just an honor to have you. So I'm going to hand over the mic to you, and I would love to just hear about that journey.
Well, thank you very much, Leyla. Yeah, well, let's start maybe how I got into all this crazy work I'm doing today. Well, when I was young, I've been studying in different universities, agricultural science, ecology in Denmark, in Austria, and Central America for almost 10 years. And my specialty or my area, what I liked most was related to chemistry, water and water chemistry, to clean water, purify, or just to get good drinking water. That was like my main, how to say, interest. And yeah, and later I met Dr. Emoto. I was very, how to say, skeptical towards him because he's very esoteric, says that water is much more than just the chemicals we can detect. But he invited me to Japan, and yeah, and I was quite, how to say, amazed that there is so much more knowledge than what we learn at the university. And it was very nice to see that the structure of the water under the microscope is also a factor describing the quality. And yeah, and I conducted a lot of research, many years. 2004, I opened his laboratory in Europe. And then for about 10 years, I traveled with him throughout all over the world. And I got stuck in Russia. I have been many, many times in Russia. It's a very interesting country. Related to science, to new science, to, let's say, not conventional science, to also to crazy ideas, because here in our Western world, the scientists, I say, are many times more, how to say, concerned about their reputation than what they find. Because of course, if you make statements which are not in common sense, you have a lot of, let's say, people against you. And this was the beauty of Dr. Emoto. He didn't care if people said what you are doing is nonsense. He said, well, that's fine. But he was just looking through the microscope. And it's amazing to see that water shows different structures, that we can see that there is a quality. Good water has a very beautiful harmonic structure. So he was absolutely right with his teachings, with his books. Of course, it was very esoterical, as when he says you pray to water or whatever. But at the end of the day, everything is vibration, and a vibration affects other vibration. And water itself, you can say, is the substance which is vibration itself, because the water molecule makes billions of movements a second and reacts on any vibration, ultrasound, X-ray, music, anything. And what touched me the most when I worked with Emoto, and what was also the most easy experiment, was with music. So if it was very difficult if you took a glass of water and you tried all kinds of things to change the water by your thoughts or by whatever things. If you would place sound, a glass of water next to a speaker and listen to a beautiful song, it was so amazing that it was so easy to get nice crystals. This was for me really touching. It's because we work by -5 degrees, -10 degrees. It's pretty cold, and it's quite frustrating when you sit there for hours and you just see nothing. There is no harmonic structure, and then you play sound, music to it, and suddenly all these crystals appear. And this is like magic. You can say, well, why is this interesting? Chemically, it's still the same water. but maybe it's not only the chemistry we want to see. And yeah, this touched me very much. So I run his laboratory. I still run the laboratory. Now it's just my own laboratory. Dr. Emoto passed away in 2014. And well, and so I did a lot of different testings. But then I stumbled over another work, and this was, which is actually quite known already in many alternative areas. This is the heart rate variability. It's medical accepted, of course. There are about 50,000 studies in heart rate variability. I can explain in a while just what it is. But the thing is, it's just that the beauty is then, well, related to the water crystal is that we don't get two crystals which are the same. And many scientists say what we are doing is not scientific. Well, you can get 20 children, there will be not two children who are the same. So it's, and you can have a huge tree outside and you won't find two leaves on this tree which are exactly the same. And the same is with the heartbeat. We have not two heartbeats in our life which are exactly the same. So this was for me a little bit like, wow, is there a relation between all this? And then I discovered a technology which is actually 40, 50 years old, which is the translation of frequency to other frequencies. So you can like octavate, you can change frequency to different spectrums. And so you can, and then it was, the target was to translate the heart frequency into sound and light. And this was how everything started, because I wanted to, I had the big problem with Emoto's work when people came to me and they prayed to the water, let's say, and I couldn't see any change. And sometimes I saw the most amazing change. And I didn't want to say, well, you are a very good person or you are not a good person. I just wanted to understand it. Why does it work or why doesn't it work? Is it just a coincidence? Is it completely nonsense? I wanted to understand it. And then sometimes we had ceremonies where there were 100 people praying to the water, focusing, having their intention, and nothing changed. And then a little child playing with the water and everything changed. So I didn't understand, how is this, all this 100 esoteric people, they are supposed to be much better than the child. And then later I came to all this approach about quality and quantity, vibration. You can have 100 musicians and it sounds terrible. You can have one musician and it sounds just amazing. 100, if they play together, it's of course also mind-blowing, beautiful. But just to see, and then I came to the approach that, to the understanding that you cannot change the water by your mind, because, and you can change it only by your heart. And this sounds so esoteric, but it's for me the frequency. So like the heart is the connector. And this is how everything started. And I'm very grateful to Dr. Emoto because he supported my work very much as I support his work. He said this work has to be spread around the world, and it goes beautifully. It's now in 28 countries. People from all fields are working and applying this. You can call it technology, but it's mainly an understanding. Mm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's me very brief.
Thank you. I mean, you know, I always share this in my own practice and on the podcast as well. You know, it all always comes back to the heart, and we can study everything, but ultimately it will always come back to that part within us that is still so unknown to most of us, right? Because we don't learn this in school, and it's just, I just don't understand that. It just drives me crazy, actually, which is ultimately why I decided to do this podcast, because we need to learn about the heart really deeply, you know, and this has to become common knowledge again. I believe it used to be, but we just somehow along the way deleted it out of our teachings and consciousness and whatnot. But I just, yeah, I love it, because as you said, you know, it doesn't come from the head brain. It comes from the heart brain, from the vibration, the power, the force of this powerful muscle and intelligence within us. And could you like share a little bit more about that? Like, what have you come to find about the power of the heart in your studies?
Yeah, well, the thing is, the beauty is always, I think it's beauty to show a little bit in history and cultures what is there. Yeah. And for example, if we go back, let's just very short before I start about the heart, back to Emoto's work and with the water crystals. So many scientists say what you're doing is nonsense. You cannot make two crystals which are the same. Water is just H2O and it's chemicals. But now if you go back in cultures, you can say all around the world, everywhere, in North America, the Indians, in Tibet, in Saudi Arabia, the Muslims, the Christian, in Africa, in South America, the Incas, all the different cultures, people, they differentiate, they make a difference between holy water, special water, and normal water. And you can say either they have all been crazy, or there must be some findings they have, or something they found out empirically over time, this water cures. So we can see that a special quality, how to say, this is described in a beautiful form. Like when you smile, when you feel good, I don't have to be a scientist, I can see you feel nice, or you just are upset or something. We can see out of the form a lot. And so there's a lot of knowledge about water, and this in all cultures, even if they have always, when they couldn't explain it, they put it into their belief, which is okay. For example, in Mecca, in Saudi Arabia, there is one of the most beautiful water I was allowed to test. And I'm not a Muslim, but it's a beautiful water spring there. The Christian have, for example, Lourdes, Lourdes in France, or different places. I've tested beautiful water from native Indians in North America, and I'm not a native Indian, but I can see the similarities. And now let's go back to the heart. The same is, let's say, we have the sayings about the heart, listening to the heart, broken heart, I don't know, the intelligence of the heart, or whatever, the heart connection, all this you find in every language, in simple every language. So either they are all just crazy, or maybe there is something. And now the funny thing is, if we go in a physical term, our heart has about a 2,000 times stronger electromagnetic field than your brain. Okay, so and now yes, that's your head, as you're thinking, as your brain. And if you have two electromagnetic fields, they interact, they communicate, they influence each other. This we can see if you take two electromagnets, they just communicate. So we know that actually the communication, and the word to communicate means to receive. So if we communicate, we are always sending and receiving. That's communication. And of course, we communicate with our voice, and it goes into our ears, and our intelligence starts to, I don't know, comment or understand. But there's another, how to say, communication, that's between the hearts. And this is not only esoterics. For me, it's pure physics. Yeah, so there's the communication. And the funny thing is, now communication, you can say, if I talk, a vibration goes out my mouth, comes through the computer, but finally comes into your ear. So it's a physical wave. But any wave, any vibration communicates with another vibration. That's just how it is. We cannot separate vibrations. So if you stand in the ocean, you emit a vibration all around you, and the ocean with all the waves also influences you. And now what is in science is like this, that any vibration wants to get coherent with another vibration. That's just a law in universe, always, every vibration. So you cannot sit in a room, listen to a nice sound and say, I don't care. I don't care about the music you're playing for me, because your whole body's vibration, and you right away try to get coherent. That's just a law. So if you hear the waltz, the waltz from Vienna, you would right away start to move to the waltz. And you cannot dance rock and roll to the waltz because it's another rhythm. It wouldn't fit. So this is coherence. Coherence means one vibration interacting with the other one. So that means entrainment means that one vibration starts to move the other one, like when you dance with your partner. And the moment you dance harmonically, you are coherent. Two vibrations are interacting. And now the funny thing is that our heart communicates between both of us much stronger than the brain, because the brain would say, who is this lady? Where is she from? What does she want? Why is she white? Why is she black? Why is she big? Why is she small? Why is she small? Our brain gives 1,000 comments. It makes like a disconnection between us, where you can say you like the person or don't like the person. But the funny thing is the heart doesn't make any comment. So heart would not say, well, I'm not going to vibrate with the guy from Africa or with my neighbor who I don't know. This is the brain. So the brain disconnects. That's the funny thing. And the heart connects. And this is not how to say, this is not esoteric again, it's physics, because when I translate your heart frequency into sound, I'll explain in a moment how it works. And I say your heart plays the violin and my heart, let's say, plays the viola or another instrument. Then we can literally hear, are we playing together? Are we starting to play together or not? And the biggest obstacle is the brain. Because when I've been talking before about the heart rate variability. So everybody who is listening to your podcast, I can just recommend highly. Please start to inform yourself about heart rate variability. Heart rate variability is short to explain what this is. Heart rate variability means, as I said before, you don't have two heartbeats which are the same. Why is this important? Let's go a little bit outside in nature. If you go in a forest and you have big trees, small trees, big diversity, old trees, young trees, this is a healthy forest, yes? It really has a big resilience. It can really resist the storms and the pests and all this kinds of stuff. But if you go in a very, let's say, weak forest, like a monoculture, where all the pine trees are the same, like an example, there comes one storm or one beetle or whatever, and the whole forest is destroyed. So it has no resistance for stress outside. And the same is with our heartbeat. If you connect a healthy person, actually it doesn't matter how old. Normally, of course, the older, the worse, because we are more stressed, the older we are, we have history, of course. But if you have a very healthy person, every heartbeat is very different. So from one heartbeat to the next, you have maybe 700 milliseconds. We measure this in milliseconds. 1 second is 1,000 milliseconds. And then we measure from one heartbeat to the next, and from the second to the third, from the third to the fourth. And we can see there is always a variation, 700, 850, 620, 933. It's always different. And the more different these beats are, the more you are able to adapt to stress. And the more similar the heartbeats become, so the more the same time difference, the more symptoms appear in our body. And this is what most people don't know. And now the thing is, our brain, we have many impacts on our health. Of course, our food and our surrounding and our lifestyle. But one of the biggest impacts, and I think actually the biggest impact, if you don't drink poison, of course, but let's say the biggest impact is your brain. Because the moment you think, your heartbeat changes. So if you think something which upsets you, a teacher which has been not so nice to you maybe before, your heart starts maybe to beat fast or whatever. And even if the teacher is gone long time ago, maybe it's not even on this planet anymore, your body doesn't distinguish between he's still there picking on you or he is maybe not there anymore. So the heart cannot, not the heart, the body cannot distinguish between, you can call it fiction or imagination and reality. If you get upset because you think of this person, you have a chemical reaction right away in your body. And now the thing is, the thinking, we are a society who cannot stop thinking. So I cannot say, dear Leyla, stop thinking. Then you would start to try, stop thinking. But we can try, we can stop thinking by using our senses. The moment you use all your attention on listening, on seeing, on smelling, on tasting, and without giving a comment, just being in this state of feeling, the brain shuts up. Of course, if you listen to something, maybe the brain says, oh, this was my child, or this is my cat, and this is my dog. But if you see these comments, and you can train this more and more, you can really become calm. And because, you know, many people, they're meditating so much, which is a beautiful thing, of course, but you meditate, and then we call it the biting monkey. You say, no, then there comes this thought and this thought, then we comment again. But if we start to use our senses, really smell and smell and smell, of course, beautiful. If you do this in the forest or wherever, the brain stops. And we can see the moment you think, the variability becomes smaller. And the moment you come into your senses, it gets bigger. And now the interesting thing is, from all your senses, from 5 senses, probably you have many more senses, but let's say this is 5 common senses, the listening, I think, is the strongest sense. because the listening, I read some papers where it said that the ear can distinguish 200,000 signals a second.
Wow.
Yes. And you are very, very talented. You can hear exactly, for example, an octave. So you can mathematically exactly hear the double of a vibration. And you can close the ears and you can hear a sound, maybe the voice of, I don't know, a neighbor you haven't seen in 30 years, and you exactly can, it comes back to
Distinguish.
life. Exactly. And so, and the German word, you speak German too, you know, the German word for listening means hören. And to stop listening means aufhören. But aufhören means also to listen on something, to listen. So if you listen auf etwas hören, to listen, so the moment you put all your attention to listening, your brain stops. So stopping, ending, and listening is, funny enough, in German the same word. And this is what I try to do. And yeah, and this is this is actually the function that I translate the heart frequency, and this is the purpose, to bring the person in a present state.
Beautiful.
Yes. So this is the work, and yeah, how it works. For me, it was like this. Let's maybe start there. I always had problems with authority. You know, not the police telling me stop when there is the red light. This is not a problem. It must make sense, of course. But authority, like in school, when teacher, I don't know, said something, it didn't make sense for me. Something I was always a little bit, you could call it a problem child, because I didn't accept if you say it rains, I have to see that it rains. If you say the water crystals are like this, I have to see it under the microscope. This was always a little bit, maybe also the scientific approach, but always like to question everything.
Well, it's curiosity. It's curiosity, and we get made wrong for curiosity, right? So I think curiosity is actually a very intelligent quality to have and to nourish.
Very beautiful, exactly. And this, and especially I think in medicine, because the problem is I'm not my studies haven't been related to medicine, but every day I'm more and more how to say, getting into the field of medicine, into healing. And I'm not a healer. I always say I can't help myself, so I can heal you. Go to somebody else. But I'm just always curious, why is this and how is this? And one approach, what I like very much, is also to question who actually heals who. And at the end of the day, we must say, nobody heals you, only your body heals you. A good doctor, a good therapist, a good shaman, they can do amazing work, of course, give you the right remedy, bring you in the center. Amazing, amazing people in all fields, alternative, conventional medicines. There are really great people out there. But we have to say, at the end of the day, it's your body who heals you, of course.
Exactly.
Must make the cell division, must change the chemistry in your body.
Yes.
Okay. And now it's like this, our body makes every second, I read in some medical paper, makes every second about 40 million body cells in 1 second. So you just made 40 million body cells. That's quite a lot, not? How did the body do this? So there's an intelligence in our body we can hardly understand. And now, related to authority, this is why I mentioned this before. Normally in medicine or in healing, it's like this. You have the problem, and from outside, we try to change it, which is, of course, empirically makes absolutely sense. We see this plant, this mushroom, I don't know, this herb has this effect, and we give it to the person. And that's, of course, nice. But I think my approach was, why not take what is inside us? There must be an intelligence inside us, a huge, huge intelligence. And the highest intelligence for me was the heart. The first organ which is developed when mother and father are making a baby, the fertilized egg, is the heart. And long before all the other organs appear and develop. So the heart is like the center. And now we know there's not two heartbeats which are the same. And now the next thing is, before I've been talking about coherence, if you are exposed to a vibration from outside, Mozart, Bach, Beethoven, heavy metal, X-ray, mobile phone, whatever, any vibration, your body tries to get coherent, tries to adapt it, tries to somehow deal with it. But the thing is, your body has to adapt to it. It has to change to it. So my idea was, why not take the body's own vibration and let it reflect back to the human or to the plant or to the animal in a vibration we understand the best. Because there are many vibrations, X-rays, sound, the light, the physical wave, like the sound we hear. There's so many vibrations, but the vibration we humans understand the best is the sound. Yes, the sound is for us the most easiest vibration to get coherent. If I put now an ultrasound machine next to you, it's very difficult for you to start dancing to the ultrasound. No, it's a little difficult. Maybe to the light, we can say, like a little child dancing over the grass plane, over the flower. This is okay, we dance in the light, that's fine. But let's say just to sound is the most easiest vibration for us to get coherent. Right away, when we listen to a song, it changes our mood, we start to dance. So for me, sound is the door opener for us when we meditate, when we sing, when we're all in a group, we can discuss, but it would much be easier if we all start to sing, because all our heartbeats, even people found out, we study in Vienna, they put in the Philharmonic Orchestra, when they play very well, the heartbeat starts to get coherent. We all sit in a room like politicians and argue and fight, and I try to convince you, our heartbeat doesn't start to get together. We all just, how to say?
Separate. Incoherent.
Yes, get incoherent. So the music is a very strong vibration to get coherent. And now my understanding was, of course, we can make beautiful sound therapy, sing to a patient, play Mozart and Bach and Haydn, Vivaldi, and all the different great musicians. But my understanding was, why not take their vibration, which must be perfect already, because there's nothing better in the whole universe than you. That's why you are you and not the other person. That's just was my understanding. And why not take this vibration and reflect it back in a range which you understand the best? Of course, I can put my hands on my heart and say, bum, 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 it's nice. But if I would translate it into sound, it would be much stronger, the effect. So this was the approach. And then, of course, back to Emoto was that I took the heart frequency, translated into sound, and played it to the water, and I got beautiful crystals. This was for me the entrance point. And so this was like using, let's say, the physics, use the esoteric approach, use the different approaches, and then you can say, and make an application out of this. And this is how everything worked. And so today we have a technology, I call it Sound of Soul. Maybe a little bit esoteric word, but I like it very much, because what is the soul? For me, the soul is the connection of you, the being you, to the universe, to liveliness, to Mother Earth, or whatever. For me, the soul is the connection. I would call it like that. Maybe it's something else, but I like this thing. So I think we humans, we are always in a certain way connected to our surrounding, to Mother Earth, to the sun, to everything. But the more we are out of the present state, the more we're disconnected.
Yes.
And what disconnects us? It's the brain, of course, because the brain cannot be present. The moment you think, you are in a horizontal time frame or timeline. You're either in the future or you're in your past. But if you're 100% present now in the place you're sitting in your room, and you completely feel yourself, there is no brain chattering. It's just silence there. And that's the present state. And then you can say, and that's what I think, then you are connected the most with the healing frequency surrounding you. Yes. Then your heart is the most connected with Mother Earth and all beauty. And this is what I try to achieve. I try to achieve by listening, reflecting their own frequency into sound, and of course in light too, how to say, get the state. And this is what we can see, because now when we connect two people, we can connect two people, as I said before, mother and child, or husband and wife, or your favorite dog with you, whatever, because the hearts communicate. And suddenly you really get aware of this other heartbeat. And the heartbeat does not only make bum, bum, bum. When we translate it, the heart starts to play melodies. That's the amazing thing, because your frequency which you emit is always changing. You're not a robot. If you would be a robot, you would just play one sound, blang, 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 all the time. But because you are alive,
You're
and
harmonic.
life, yeah, harmonic, but harmonic actually is starting to develop the more you get in the present state.
Yes.
That's the funny thing.
Right.
Because the nature itself, the universe, the cosmos from Greek, as I think it's from Greek, it means an order, a higher order. And an order is harmonic. It's not an order like in military. This is not order. This is the same. It's a higher order, a dynamic order. Like if you see the beautiful ocean and the beautiful forest, it's a higher order. It's just beauty. If you see a monoculture forest, it's also order. All the trees are the same, but this is not order. This is death, because similarity, there is no similarity in this universe. There's always a little change. So there are not two Leylas on this planet. So this is what life is. So it's a higher order. And this is what I mean when I connect you with your friend and the true heart starts to play, we can start to hear harmonics. But when you think of your telephone bill and your friend thinks, I don't know, whatever, you start to disconnect. Because then the brain somehow laps over. And that's like when you dance with your partner and you think, where's my next step? What happens? You stand on his feet. Yes. And the same as I always explain, when we are all sitting in a nice group and we clap to a nice song, yes, the little child and the old music professor, they will clap as good as the other one. But if this highly intelligent guy maybe thinks, when is my next clap? He will be out of the group. Why? Because the brain has so high difficulties to get coherent. And if we want to change something on this planet, I think we have to understand, that's me very philosophically, but I think that's the fact, to understand what has caused the problems. The problems on this planet has caused the brain. Brain telling me we are separated, we are two. Buddhists very much say the I is an illusion. It's a very nice saying. So we are one, of course. It's a beautiful saying, but it is finally like this because vibration doesn't want to separate. And when we understand that the brain has caused it, we cannot solve it by the brain. Einstein said you cannot solve the problem by the approaches which has caused them. So if you are arguing with your partner, first you are in love, everything is nice, you're coherent, you're dancing all 24/7, like a nice new, how to say, partnership. And the more we are in the brain, you know everything about this strange guy, he knows everything about you, the more we separate. So the brain separates us. But the heart, they're like two metronomes. The heart is like a metronome. They want to connect. So this is not esoteric, it's physics, I think. Esoterics is if you believe it, and that's fine too. But at the end of the day, it's pure physics. And this was the approach. Actually, when I started to develop this, I didn't want to cure or help anybody because this was not I'm not a healer. I just wanted to develop something to make nice water crystals out of a frequency source. And the best frequency source is your heart. And later I saw, well, this could be a wonderful understanding to connect problems like the Jew with the Arab. They have 100 arguments to kill each other with the brain, with the history and all this. But while the two brains are arguing, the hearts try to get coherent. And if we understand this, we can change so much. And this is, how to say, for example, we connected people in wake coma, being in wake coma. And every time we saw right away an amazing reaction. One lady in wake coma, she was humming to her sounds in wake coma. We had a 12-year-old girl. She was in wake coma. She was hit by a big SUV, a big car. The doctor said, like, she is medical trash. A very hard expression where they say there's just the organs of function, but she won't wake up anymore. The therapist connected her with the mother. After 3 minutes, they were just listening to the sounds, both. The pulse, the heart rate of this little girl, 12-year-old, almost went down to half, because many people in wake coma have very fast half pulse. And 3 days, they were connected several times. The little girl woke up, just listening to the heart of the mother. And I don't say that the technique woke them up. The two each other influenced. It's just a mirror.
Yeah.
So the magic, we know, we have so many fairy tales about the mirror, you know, mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the most beauty, or how it does work. So the mirror is just reflecting yourself. And this is what I do. I take your heart frequency and I reflect it back into sound. So then you encounter yourself in the vibration you understand the most. And we can, now I connected a horse with the owner. Beautiful. Just the two vibrations listening to each other. Yeah, this is the amazing thing. I think this is a new, of course, we say in German, it's still in the kindergarten shoes. It's still in the beginning. It can develop to much, much higher.
Absolutely.
But really,
but it's a new frontier.
Yeah, exactly. And this is how now it's applied in 28 countries. I have therapists working with this in all fields: conventional medicine, oncology, gynecology. I have it in heart surgery, a children wish center. I don't know if it's the right translation. And then I have a lot of alternative therapists, a shaman working with this, a teacher working with this, hypnosis, psychiatrists, all different kinds of people, because they use it like an entrance point to the person, that they can hear how the one is playing. And yeah, this is what I'm doing. So I'm trying to sum it up somehow. I take for the audience who is listening to this, to understand what is happening. If you take a tuning fork, yes, normal tuning fork, everybody knows a tuning fork, and you hit this tuning fork, and you have a second tuning fork, and the second tuning fork has the same vibration. What happens? You hit one, the second one you don't touch, but the second one starts, like from magic, out of magic, starts to vibrate by itself. Yes, that's just, everybody can do it. Take a tuning fork, hit it, you hear the sound, you have the next one next to it, and you stop the first one which you hit by touching it, and then you can hear, put it to your ears, you hear, wow, it's vibrating still. That's wonderful.
It's resonance.
So this is, it's a resonance. And now the funny thing is, if you have the same tuning fork, let's call it do, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, do, and you have the second tuning fork, which is not the same do, but it's a do 1 octave higher, and you hit the first one, the other do also vibrates. It doesn't matter. It's just the double vibration. So like if you have a string, I don't know if I find a string here. I have here, no, it's an AKC cable. Just the audience can see it, but you have a cable, you have a string, like a violin string, you hear a sound, yes? Maybe you can hear, it's not a nice sound. Anyways, you have a sound and you have the same vibration, you have the vibration. If I take this chord, this string, and I make half of it by the same tension, I hear exactly the octave. And if I make half of it, I hear the next octave. So I just call it like this: the information stays the same. Do, next do on the piano, it's always the same. It's just doubling the vibration, but they all interact. And the audience who is listening to this, really try this by yourself. If you find a piano somewhere, not a piano, of course, a piano with strings, you open the lid, you press the pedal, that the strings are all free, and you hit the do, for example, and you go with the fingernails over all the strings, you will see that the next do is vibrating on your finger without having touched it. And the next do is also vibrating, and the next also. So now we understand that we can translate by this law vibrations. I always explain it like this: if you read the letter A, like A in the alphabet, A, B, C, very little in the book, and you read the letter A painted huge on the wall, do you read more A because it's huge? No, you get the same information. Like you take the picture of your grandmother, very little, and a huge picture of her, you won't get more information. You can more easily maybe distinguish the differences because it's a huge picture, but you will see, at least if it's big enough, this is my grandmother and the same. So it's the same information. And now go back to the heart. We measure the sympathetic and the parasympathetic state for the people who are, we have an autonomic nervous system, yes, running by itself, like digestion, heartbeat, all kinds, breathing, beautiful, all running by itself. We can influence it a little bit, like breathing, hold our breath, but we cannot say we hold our heartbeat or we hold our digestion. Fortunately, we can't do so. So we have an autonomic nervous system, and this autonomic nervous system is dominated by two branches. One branch is the parasympathetic. This is for relaxation, for digestion, for breathing out, for letting go, for recharging, for rebuilding destroyed structure. Like when we train hard, we're very sympathetic, but in the gym, and then we go to bed and we sleep, our body starts to build up what we have literally destroyed or what we have stressed. So we have the one branch, the parasympathetic. It's also called the vagal nerve is the most dominant. That's one frequency range. It can be distinguished also in frequencies. So we have the parasympathetic and we have the sympathetic. The parasympathetic, we call it the high frequency, and the sympathetic, the low frequency, like a frequency range in the radio. We measure this between 0 and 0.4 hertz. That's just, everybody can read about this in literature. And now imagine we take from the parasympathetic the 0.4 hertz. Okay, that's a vibration. And let's say this is the violin string tuned to 0.4 hertz. This would be very low for frequency. We call it high frequency because it's higher than the sympathetic, but related to sound, it's still a very low frequency. And now we take the 0.4 hertz and we start to make the first octave. Yes, the first octave is just doubling the vibration. So from 0.4 hertz, we get 0.8 hertz. Now we double again, it would be 1.6 hertz. We double again, 3.2. We double again, 6.4. We double again, 12.8. We double again, 25.6, if I'm calculating right. And now we already entered the hearing range because we hear between 20 and 20,000 hertz. That's the range we can hear. A bat, yes, can hear up to 200,000 hertz, or a dog maybe can hear up to 60,000 hertz. I don't know exactly how high. A dolphin maybe 200,000 hertz. So we have different windows we can hear. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we translate the heart frequency into a range we can hear.
Yeah.
And now we have the variability. We have not the same heartbeat always, which means sometimes you play a do, then you play a la, then you play a re, then you play a mi, or in German in C and F and G and A, whatever, and the different sounds. And then we go further and we translate it into the light. So if we, for example, take 256 hertz for the do, we make the double again, 512, 1024, 2048, and we go up to trillion hertz. Lot, very, very fast vibration. And then, that's a mathematical formula, you divide it by the speed of light, then you get the wavelength. And then we see if you take 256 up to trillion hertz double, and you divide it by the speed of light, you get the color green. So the sound do is green, and the heart chakra is green. Why is it like this? Why is the heart chakra green? You can think, have the old Indians, have they been stoned, or how are they crazy? Or they have been mathematicians. Mm-hmm. They understood that music and vibration and sound and light, it's all the same.
It's the language of the universe.
Exactly, it's a language of the universe. And now we can say the universe starts from the number 1. Let's just assume this: one universe, one God, just one oneness. We are all one, you can say. Mm-hmm. And then it's God's divided, we are 2. Okay, and then we are 4, and then we are 8, and then we are 16, and then we are 32, then we are 64, and then we are 128, then we are 256, and this is a natural sound do. Do, re, mi, fa, sol. So 1, 2, 4, 8, 6, 1, 2, 4, 8, it's just the binaural system, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256. So starting from 1 doubling, we come to 256. And then we hear the natural sound do. And then we go further, further, further to trillion hertz divided by the speed of light, and we get the color green. So the first chakra is the heart. It's not the root chakra down there.
No.
That's a bad translation. I think they made mistakes during years.
I agree.
Because everybody copies from the other one and they don't understand what they do. It's just a few people. I just calculated and then I saw it's green. But I'm not the first one who did this. Other people did the same. They found the same thing. So I'm not. Plato, 2,500 years ago, 2,400 years, I think, he did the same calculation. He just didn't have a calculator like I have, doesn't have a computer, but he did the same calculation. But the interesting thing is that the Indians in India, I don't know how they calculated this because they didn't have a calculator like we have now, very easily calculating up to trillion. But they were right. The first chakra is green, it's the heart. It's mathematics. 1 is green. And so, and this is what we're doing. So we translate your heart frequency into sound and light, take your frequency, and you suddenly start to encounter yourself. And that's what we are doing. And so we connect somebody like with an AKG. We put electrodes on your chest. We measure the biosignal, like the AKGs. You know, everybody knows the AKG, how it works, how it runs on the screen. And then we measure the time difference from one heartbeat to the next, to the second, to the third. So then we get, how to say, the heart rate variability. And then we can mathematically calculate the frequency range, sympathetic, parasympathetic. And then we can calculate mathematically what would be the corresponding sound. And then we can calculate the light. It's just mathematics. It's not magic.
Right.
But magic is that you and I and we all are alive, and that we all are different. That you, Leyla, you don't have 2 heartbeats in your life which are the same. This makes you alive. Your brain, I'd say, of course, is also alive, but we know that 90% of our thoughts are the same. What you have been thinking about your neighbor, about politics, about, I don't know, whatever, is pretty much the same like yesterday. It changed.
Right. And the heart brain sends those signals to the head brain. And the thoughts and emotions that we feel from the heart is what influences our electromagnetic field.
Sure. But the heart is, let's say, unconditioned.
Exactly.
Your brain is conditioned.
Yes.
You grew up, I don't know, in Britain, in Switzerland, you think different than a person growing up in Saudi Arabia. If you would grow up in Saudi Arabia, you would be 99.9% Muslim. That's just a fact. So you haven't chosen literally that you are Christian or not Christian. It's your surrounding.
Environment.
If you grew up in Tibet, you would be a Buddhist. Or if you grew up in I don't know, wherever, in India, you would be Hindu. That's just how it is. That's fine. That's how we are conditioned. But our heart, we can influence our heart by our thoughts, by worries, by bad nutrition. You know, cause of death, number 1, nowadays they are arguing is between heart attack and cancer. Some people say now it's cancer, but most doctors still say it's a heart attack, followed by the stroke later. But we have societies, native societies, where there are no heart diseases. There are literally no heart diseases. Native Indians, I just listened yesterday to a beautiful, I read a beautiful book from Dieter Stoll. Maybe you heard him. It's a wonderful guy, a German guy who lived in North America many, many years, and then he came back. He's all about plants and nature, which plant is good for which disease. And I was reading it yesterday night for falling asleep. And he said, all these native tribes, native communities, they have herbs for everything, for all kinds, for infection, for bad nutrition, for all kinds. But they have hardly no herbs for the heart because they have never had issues. That's the funny thing. When you are so connected to nature, there I heard, I don't know if it's true, but I heard that there are tribes in northern Siberia where there is no heart attack. They have no heart attack. Maybe they are killed by a wolf or a bear, or I don't know, fall down a cliff, or all kinds of injuries, of course, but they have hardly no heart problems. So our heart problems, or also depression, burnout, sleeping disorder, down to stroke and heart attack, are cultural diseases. Why? Because we are a society which is always in the brain. Thinking, then we go to toilet, we're sitting with our mobile phone because we cannot relax 5 minutes, then we go to bed before we fall asleep, listening to the news. We get so much trash into our brain.
Yeah.
And then we wonder why we are such an outbalanced society. Yeah. Completely out. And we have to come back. And I'm not making myself as an exception. I really have to do myself too, because I'm also like a news junkie, all things, but this is our weak side. But I think, how to say, by coming back to the heart, listening to the heart, listening to the self, and listening is so strong because it's the sense which affects us the strongest. We can very easily tune ourselves back to our roots. Yes. And this is, I think, what our society has to do, because
absolutely
our brain disconnects us. If you see now what happens in this universe where everything is a lie, what they tell in the news is 99% a lie. If it's not the only truth, more or less, is the weather, and then we can look out of the window and it's just lasts for 3 days. They cannot make more than 3 days, how to say, forecast. Yeah, exactly. And somehow I say, we have to understand, if we continue all our society by the brain, you know, the worst thing a human race has done is killing another race, like 80 years ago. And what they did it in concentration camps. And now we have to take this word literally. Where do you concentrate? It's in the brain. So if the brain is disconnected by the heart, humans do the worst thing they ever have done, especially in the group. Yeah. In the group, if we are heart connected, we can do the most beautiful thing. We can change the whole world. Yeah. But if we are in the group, brain connected, disconnected from the heart, we become convinced ideologists, and we do. So I always say, if people say, I'm convinced, I say, I'm not interested in what you do. If you are begeistert, what is this in English, the word begeistert?
Inspired.
Inspired. I love to listen to inspired people, no matter what they do. I don't care. But if you're convinced you're by the brain, yes. But inspired you are by the heart, because the heart is the connector.
Yes. Well, yeah. Inspired is in spirit.
Exactly. And the spirit is the vibration, you can say.
Yes.
And so this is, but I think also we have to understand why is the world as it is. Because I think it's the fear. Fear is created by the brain. Yes. Fear is the little brother of the thinking. Yes. Because it's, of course, conditioned. Of course, it makes sense to be afraid of the bear and be afraid of the wolf or whatever. That makes sense. But our society is so afraid. Now comes the economical stress. Before we had Corona, now we are freezing maybe this winter. All our society is bring the people fear 24/7. Everybody's afraid. I hope I don't get cancer, because we know almost 40% of the Western society experience cancer during their life. That's the statistics nowadays. So we are afraid, and fear has an effect on our body. What does it make?
It contracts us.
Yes, it contracts us, but it also makes us lose energy. We lose electricity, we lose electrons. If we get sour, sour, acid. Yes. If a water is acid, here's water. If it's acid, it has a lack of electrons, of availability of electrons. So an acid water is a water with little electrons. Yes, just understand this. So if in German we say, I get sour, yes, somebody upsets me, my neighbor upsets me, or whoever news. So I lose electrons. But if I hug you, if I dance with you, if I listen to beautiful sounds, if we get coherent again, this is what two scientists found out. One is in Russia, it's Vladimir Voikov, and one is Gerald Pollack in the United States. They say if you have a water and a vibration, a harmonic vibration comes from outside to the water molecule starts to get coherent. They touch each other, like giving each other the hand. And then you have a surplus of electrons. You literally create electricity. So if you have here water, let's say this is a cell full of water. The cell is surrounded by the membrane. In the cell, we have water. Now there comes a frequency from outside, the sun, the infrared, the Schumann frequency, the Mozart sound, the neighbor laughing to you, whatever, a harmonic vibration. The water molecule starts to interact. They give each other the hands, the H2O molecule, they start to connect. And then there's suddenly a surplus of electrons in the at the water, which are the closest to the membranes, to the membrane. And the water in the center, they are still lacking electrons. But if you have two different pHs, too many electrons and too little, the electron starts to move. And then, like you have battery in the car, you have plus and minus, and from minus to plus, the electrons are running, moving, try to outbalance the pH, of course, because a battery is nothing else than two different pH gradients, of course. So, and in between you have the autoradio, or in between we have the mitochondria, or in between we have
Conductor.
our living. Exactly. And so now it's like this, if you give somebody a hug, or if you listen to music, beautiful sound, or if you're exposed to the sunlight, if you come to the present state because your brain is not chattering, then like if you dance with your partner, when he's chattering all the time, you cannot get coherent with him. But if you come to the present state, you dance beautifully, you get coherent with Mother Earth, and then you change the pH on cellular level and you get electricity, and you come out of the acid state. Cancer loves acidity. Yeah. We know this. Yes, there are also many other things, lack of oxygen. We don't have any time to talk all about this, but this is the most easiest way, is the moment we laugh and we dance and we get sunlight and we hug each other and we listen to the beauty of our heart, we change the pH of cellular level. And then healing takes place, whatever the healing is. Yeah. Because we know we heal only in the relaxed state. Only. You don't heal by running. You don't heal by fighting. Maybe when you go to the gym, you build up the muscles, but in the gym, actually, you don't build up muscles. You lose muscles. But now you have put an effort, and now you go home, and the body starts to build up. And then you go to the gym again, and then you always make the step higher and higher. But if you would only go to the gym in the morning, in the evening, in the night, after 2 weeks, your body would say, or after 3 days, this would destroy you. So the healing takes place the moment we come in the present state. And that's the problem, that we hardly get in the problem state, even at night, because the dream itself, Krishnamurti beautiful say, the dream is the digestion of how did he call it?
Unprocessed.
Unprocessed thoughts. Yes. How to say, thoughts you haven't been aware of.
Yeah.
Yes.
The unconscious, subconscious thoughts.
Exactly, unconscious thoughts. Because the moment we are conscious, we don't have to digest it anymore. But if we see all this nonsense, news, arguing, all this, the moment we are so much in emotions, if I would argue with you and we fight, then we are not conscious. Then we are just reacting, right. I don't know, to reacting beings. But the moment we are conscious about what we are doing, watching ourselves, I don't have to digest it. Then I can come at least at sleep in this deep REM phases where we really are in the present state. And we can heal ourselves. But we can also reach this state during daytime by listening. And this is what I try to do. Yeah. So,
oh my goodness.
But if you want, we can make. I can show you at least. I don't have to share the screen, but I can show now to the audience how it sounds. I hope you can hear it. I hope I have samples here. Can you hear the sound?
Yes, I can.
Okay. This is a 40-year-old lady from Britain, came to my office, translated her heart frequency into harp sounds.
Wow.
For the audience, they can go on my website, aquaquinta.com, and there they can hear too many different sounds, old people, young people, couples, whatever, mother and child. Very beautiful to listen to this. And this is, this is the work I'm doing now the most. Of course, I do still the water crystals, and conduct all kinds of experiments. A lot of work I'm doing now today is to find solution to harmonize the vibration of electromagnetic sources, like the mobile phone or the router, you know, the wireless LAN.
Right.
And because the thing is, we can see if you sit with your mobile phone is a coherent, is always the same frequency. It's not a variation.
Right.
You know, it's a frequency range, of course, but how to say, it's not alive. It's not something like out in nature.
Right.
All frequency which we use, of course, exists already in nature. All frequency ranges. Of course, we humans use certain, and how to say, the ultrasound exists long before we had an ultrasound machine. The bats communicating with each other, flying around at night, they use ultrasound. So we can, of course, not invent something, we can use it, of course, and apply it. But now the different thing is, if we take an ultrasound in a machine, it's like a sinus wave. It's always the same vibration, like the smoke detector. And it doesn't sound so beautifully. But if, how to say, now the interesting thing is, if you take certain materials like shungite, gold, different substances, magnetite, we can see, we can influence, how to say, the effect on the water. So if I take now a mobile phone, put it to the water, let whatever thing run, YouTube or anything, we can see that the water structure becomes worse. Yes, because it's like a knife cut, it's always the same frequency. And water does not like always the same frequency. Nature, water is nature, life doesn't want to have the same frequency. But now we could see, if we, for example, use shungite, you know, shungite, that's a substance. I tell the people, there are so many chips on the market for mobile phones. I would say from 100 chips, 90 are not worth the paper, not worth it's just nonsense. It may be the only thing, it's good, you spend a lot of money and the guy got happy, that's maybe fine for him, but at least you have been aware about that the mobile phone can be danger. Yes, but I don't want to, how to say we have to go back to the cave and don't use electricity, I love my phone because I use it 24/7, it's my office. But we humans have to see that it's a very dangerous technology. It affects very strong our heart. Our heart, if imagine you have a smoke detector up in your room. When it burns, your room is on fire, it starts to make a noise. So the smoke detector is a very important tool. It saves your life, and you sleep and your room starts to burn. We need this. But imagine your smoke detector would be screaming 24/7, all the time. You would hear it all the time. You, after 20 minutes, you would get completely crazy. After 1 hour, probably you would, I don't know, get aggressive. It's because this is not a sound you want to hear. And now go back to the mobile phone. If we translate this, it's not a harmonic sound. It's of course not as effective as the smoke detector, because the listening affects us the most. We have been talking about this is our language. That's why we talk in the hearing range, and we don't talk by ultrasound or megahertz, because we talk as this is our vibration for us humans. But imagine if this vibration, how to say, this unharmonic mechanical vibration we are exposed to all the time, the water can react on this. And now the question is, how can we make it harmonic? Now, we can be yelling at each other, very disharmonic, and it would make us sick, or we can be harmonic and beautiful. And I think this is what we have to develop now in the future. And I'm working with this since 10 years. I try gold, for example. Gold is so good. Put gold on your phone. Just a little. If you're bankrupt, you can sell the gold. Put a little sheet of gold on your phone. How to say, or use magnetite. And now you work with different partners. I have 2 wonderful partners in Switzerland who apply this. I don't know if I may tell how they're called, but you can find them on my website, hado-life.com. That's my other website from the laboratory. And I tried to develop now different, how to say, material mixtures, also for clothes, where we don't shield it completely. Because if we would shield it completely, it wouldn't work. But we have to harmonize it, make it to a sound, and at least we can measure with the water, where we get harmonic structures. And this is besides of the work now I do with the heart rate variability and sound, and this is actually one of my other main works. It's not trying to develop different, you could call it, approaches, material mixtures. For example, my room here behind of me, this is all clay, just clay. Inside is hemp. I just isolate with hemp, so there's not rock wool and all this not so nice material. Between is wood, and in the clay I have gold, I have ashes, I have magnetite, I have shungite. I spent not so much money, but some, because I want to create a house which are harmonic. Of course, I have here still mobile phone. We're talking to each other. It doesn't shield me completely,
right?
But I see it has a positive effect on me, and I think this is the research we have to do, because of course, if you're completely, the funniest thing is, if you're completely in the present state, if you're completely healthy, it needs a lot of input from outside to put you out of your center. Yes, you could say you need a lot of mobile phones, a lot of stress, television. But in our society, if you are already very, very stressed, it doesn't need so much maybe to break you completely.
Exactly.
So this is, of course, eat healthy, be centered, be happy. The mobile phone, I know it, for example, when I give a lecture, I have been teaching a lot. And if I teach 8 hours in a row, yes, I'm completely exhausted. I'm sympathetic all day, try to share all what I know, what I love to do. And then I take the phone and make a half-an-hour call. It burns my head. It literally hurts.
Yeah.
But if I have a nice weekend, long, slept, was in the ocean, exposed to the sun, I'm just good food, nice vacation, I can talk half an hour. It of course affects me, but it doesn't affect me as strong as if I'm almost, how to say, completely exhausted already. Yeah. So, and now I think we have to try to get from many approaches the best for our society. One thing is to harmonize the phones, because I love my phone. I want to work with this. I love to talk with you. Now we are Zoom. It's amazing. It's great, the technology, but we have to keep on developing and seeing how can we
become more coherent.
Yeah, exactly. But how do we do it on a positive, coherent way?
Yes, exactly.
And this is because coherent means just communication. Coherent means just if you talk with the phone, you get coherent with this vibration. Yes. So how to say, this is a work I love to do very much, to work in that field. And the other field is, of course, to see what influence, to see that the heart, for me, is the best vibration. And that's the interesting thing also, I haven't explained yet. We normally think the young, healthy person will play a beautiful sound. Yes. And let's say the sick fellow will not play nice. And now the interesting thing is I can connect a person in cancer state, whatever, completely in a bad condition. The moment, and the person plays the sounds as we heard before, or you will play to your audience. The moment the person gets in the present state, he or she will sound beautiful. That's the amazing thing. And you can have a top, beautiful young model, whatever, and when you're worried in your head, she's not coherent. She doesn't get coherent with her surrounding, even if her whole body still is young and shiny, but her heart doesn't get in coherence. That's the funny thing. You can explain it with an instrument. You can have the most beautiful big organ with a lot of sounds, or beautiful viola, and it's a beautiful violin. But if you can't play, it makes no sense. You can have a little flute from South America with 3 holes. If you can play this, you can touch the whole world. And this is the funniest thing also with the heart. You can have a very little variability, 3 heart attacks, many diseases, many symptoms. The moment you come in the present state, you will touch the other one. That's mind-blowing. And that's the beauty. What I want to show is that every human, that's the amazing thing. It sounds so esoteric, has a beautiful heart.
Yeah.
Even
Exactly.
the worst dictator has a beautiful heart. He's just completely insane and nuts 40 centimeters above. But his heart still tries to keep him alive.
Yeah.
It doesn't judge.
Exactly.
But of course, the heart is very disconnected because of all the conditioned, stupid brain. But the moment that it's still the center of life, the heart, and it's still the connector to liveliness around the person.
Yes.
And that's the beauty. If the person gets in the present state, that's the amazing thing. No matter the condition, no matter, can start getting coherent with the surrounding, because the surrounding is harmonics. Our cosmos is order, is higher order, is harmonic. And we are just disconnecting ourselves all the time. And if you go back to the Bible, I left church long ago, but there are many interesting things. I think that's it's maybe very strange that I say this now, but this is the disconnection of paradise. This is our brain.
Exactly.
Our brain is the cause.
Yeah.
The brain is the most amazing tool. It's the best computer. We can be grateful that we have it. But it's also in the development, the last one.
Yeah.
And we say in technique, we call it the children diseases. You know, if you make a new car, it takes some weeks and months until the children diseases are gone. So if something is completely new developed, it hasn't gone through the process of, how to say, fixing all the small details. And the same is with our brain. In evolution, it's the latest, how to say, development, our brain, no? Yeah. Before the fishes, all the down. But our brain has the most children diseases. If I understand, it is the latest development, but it's not ready developed yet. Yeah. Because it still keeps us in the illusion. Right. We are separated. We are two. Exactly. Me against the universe. Yeah. So actually our brain is amazing, destroying our whole society. Why? Because it's not ready developed yet. Our heart is ready. Yes. Maybe it sounds so esoteric, but the heart is the connector to the universe and not the brain. Yeah. That's just what I think, at least from the electromagnetic field, from the variation and so on. So this is, I think, and this we have to learn, I think, because we can do good and give some poor people a little money, but at the end of the day, we will save all money for ourselves because we think, I'm disconnected from you, I need more for bad times. We see now, we're afraid of cold winter, everybody's buying wood and we all try, instead of giving everything away, imagine that I give everything to my neighbor. I know bad time is coming. Wow, that's amazing. Give everything to my neighbor. Why? Because my neighbor would give everything to me. I would live in surplus 24/7. Exactly. But our mind says, oh, I'm afraid. Me, more, and I, the most three worst words we use all the time. And how to say, and this is caused by the brain, because the brain says it's only you, Leyla, against the whole universe. And this is actually, and this is, I think, the biggest mistake
that we're experiencing, that has been imparted onto us through our education system and so many different systems, you know, which ultimately we're programmed from the brain as well.
Absolutely. It's the conditioning, of course. And there it's very philosophically what I say here, but I saw the same with the water crystals. The water crystal, when I want to change the water, this was one of the biggest teaching I got the last many years. So many people sit in front of the water and meditate, Om, Shanti, Shanti, whatever. I want to make a good water. The funny thing is I see nothing is happening. It many times is the worst. Why? Because there are two big mistakes. It's an intention. Lynn McTaggart, she makes, maybe you know about her, she makes beautiful work, but she makes a mistake in the expression. It's not the intention experiment, it's the attention experiment. There's a big difference. Yes. If your child is sick, you have the intention to heal it. You go to a doctor, you give the remedies, you do all, that's the intention. There is a tension between you and the disease. It's intention. Now you got the best doctor, you got the best remedy, whatever, but all is nice. Now the healing process has to start. And this is the attention, this is the anti-tension, to be just aware. Because the moment you are aware, you get in resonance.
Yeah.
If I see this beautiful lady on the other side of the street, I have the intention maybe to run over to her. That's a tension between us. And I don't see right and left. There is a bus coming from the right or from the left, and I don't reach it. So first there was the intention, that's nice. But to reach my target, I have to get into attention, out of tension, to be in resonance, to see what is around me.
Out of tension, I love that.
And now that's very interesting. At least I think. There's a beautiful saying, which is creation is intention plus attention. Okay, and now the attention is for me the anti-tension, to be out of tension. Because now I have this water and I want to change this water. I have the intention, and I have to change this water. It's a nice approach. Of course, I want to change it. But by being in the intentions, the intental state, I don't know if English is right, I won't change it. Right. A little child playing with the water, everything is changing. I get the most beautiful crystal. 100 people, I call it egoterics, I want to change, nothing is happening. But the moment you laugh, the moment you become part, the moment you just become aware of the water, you get in resonance with it. And this is the funny thing, is that because the intention changing the water has two mistakes. One thing is that the mistake is that I'm separated from the water. Me, my little me wants to change this water. We are all connected. The vibration is coming back and forward all the time. The only thing that's connected is up here. So that's a mistake. I'm disconnected. So the intention to change this, that's a big mistake. And the second mistake is that I think I can make it better. It's a judgment. But now we have a heart, and the heart has the biggest electromagnetic field. So my heart influences this water 10 times more than the brain, just physically. It's not 10 times, 2,000 times more. The electromagnetic field is 2,000 times stronger than here. Okay. So now we see the moment I think, my variation becomes smaller, I limit myself. The moment I don't want anything, I just become attentive, I magnify the vibration I encounter around me and I emit. That's the amazing thing. You know,
and it's the difference. It's the difference between, you're saying, it's the difference between concentration versus presence.
Exactly. Because presence is not concentration.
Exactly, yeah.
Concentration is, of course, nice. I have to teach my little daughter, she has a big exam in 2 days. We have to focus. We have to materialize. Yes, we have to materialize writing, all that, that's fine. The funny thing is the smallest matter what exists is the thought. And in English, we have the nice expression, it doesn't matter. It's very interesting. Expression. It maybe comes from some other things. It's interesting. But I just think it's the moment we become just, I don't think, I watch you and I don't think this is Leyla, this is me, whatever. The moment there is no separation, right. The brain separates later. What does she want? What do we want to bring? Or whatever. And the same, I think, is with the water. And the moment we just watch it, be aware of it, we see it. Yeah. The German word, I love just all languages, of course, but the interesting thing is in the German language, there are many, probably also in English, but I'm not so good in English. But in German, there's a word, it's called achtsam. Yes, achtsam means being attentive. But what means achtsam? There's the first beginning is acht. Acht means 8. Being attentive, completely directly translated from English, from German to English, means being 8-ful. Now you'd say, why 8? Why not being 7-ful or 6-ful or 5-ful?
Infinity.
No, yes, infinity. You got it right away. Amazing. Because if I have here a string, it vibrates. And if I, whatever sound I hear, and if I make exactly half of it, I get the octave. It's the same information. So it's like the 8. The center of the 8 is the crossing point. One sound is one big wave. And if I divide it by 2, I got the 8. Like string theory. And exactly there, where I have the point, I see the 8. And being 8-ful, being achtsam, you are like a vibrating string, which goes to the next octave. And then you can resonate with your cat, with your dog, with your neighbor, with the sun, with anything. That's our specialty of us humans, I think. That's why we can be creators. We can be attentive. We can be aware in the state of attentiveness. This, I think, is our, and then we can maybe do something good. Yes. So
incredible.
Very, very.
Yes.
Very much. Yes.
Oh my goodness.
But I love the words. Yes.
Yeah.
Where the words.
Yes, I mean, there's spells, right? I mean, spelling is literally you are casting a spell into your field, into your life. It creates your reality. So words have a profound meaning. And if we don't learn the etymology of words, even courage, right? To be courageous, courage, the root, the etymology is from core, which means heart. So to be courageous means to lead from the heart, right?
Beautiful. Exactly. Exactly. This is like Braveheart. We know this movie. And yesterday, when I was reading this book, he also said, being brave means that you listen to your heart.
Exactly.
It's so beautiful. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's very nice. So at the end of the day, I try to do this work here, and in the internet you can find, of course, many videos in YouTube where I explain it also for the audience who wants to.
Yeah, we'll share all your information, so don't worry. But yes, I mean, my goodness, Rasmus, I could speak with you all day. It's just incredible. And we're gonna end here, but then for those of you that want to hop over to the Standing Light YouTube channel, we'll also be recording your daughter, and we're going to show the example of what you share with us, and what you're studying and producing and helping us with. So for those of you that want to head on over to YouTube and watch that, please do. And for now, I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything that you do and everything that you share, and for your inspiration, that you share so beautifully. And it really is, it's so noticeable how you really create from the heart. So thank you so much, Rasmus.
Thank you.
I feel like I want to bring you on one more time, maybe in season 2, to speak about water itself, because I know that you're a wealth of knowledge there as well, which is another very important topic of, what kind of water we're drinking and how and all that. So maybe part 2 in season 2.
Absolutely.
But thank you
Wonderful.
so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you too, Leyla. Thank you.